p.m. UK time. It's actually 6 past 6. This is the spiritual discussion program. I'm Saad, and very shortly my colleague Gregory will be joining us. To introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Uptrushin. Every week we have a topic for discussion. The topic for discussion tonight is what happens to me? Is it my fault? What happens to me? Is it my fault? I'm going to just welcome Gregory now. Gregory, welcome to the show. How are you doing, and how is the weather where you are?
Thanks, one is fine. The weather is cool.
Okay. Here in London it is warm, at least 25 degrees, I would say. Yes, and very sunny and bright, and a little breeze. So, welcome listeners. As I said, the aim of this show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Uptrushin. And the topic for tonight is, what happens to me? Is it my fault? If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number. I'm going to give you it with the prefix. So that is +44 79 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. I'll repeat that. It's +44 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, and there, if you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat, pretty much at the bottom of the page, and you can type in any questions or comments there. I'm going to begin with, what is the Grail Message? The Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Uptrushin is the spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail Message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized, and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail Message, Uptrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail Message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole without leaving any gaps. Again and again in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything, without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail Message lives so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace, if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic we are discussing tonight is, what happens to me? Is it my fault? What happens to me? Is it my fault? If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number. I'll give you it with the prefix. It is +44 79 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. I'll just repeat that. It's +44 79 39 641 958. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1.com. If you scroll down to the bottom of the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. Now, as usual, I like to look up the meaning of the words in the topic. Actually, I must say that words are quite straightforward this time. I'm even going to just look up the only one word really, which is fault. So a fault, it means responsibility for a mistake, a physical defect or flaw in an object. An error, okay, that's sort of, yeah, I'm just going to stop. Let me just stop on that one. So a fault means responsibility for a mistake. Let me look at that then. So Gregory, what does how relevant is this for our discussion? A fault means responsibility for a mistake.
Well, it's pointing along the right direction.
Okay, that's good. That's good. The second one, I don't think it's relevant, so I'm going to ignore that one. It's talking about, let me just say, a defect is or flaw. That's a fault. So what do you say about this one? I know it's talking about an object, but
Again,
it could be
it's pointing to the right direction, because
okay.
You talked about defects, you talked about responsibility. So when one looks at it holistically, these expressions are pointing to the right direction, although they're not complete.
Okay, and the next one I have is an error. So that again from the meaning of fault. Is that right? I'm thinking about that. Right.
Because you can't have that there is some problem somewhere, and then you're not connected at all. You're not connected in your intuitions, or in your thoughts, or in your deeds, and then you talk of an error. You have to be connected. There must be some relations before faults or errors are concerned. As long as that's the initial step, commence through your activities. Whether these activities are that of the thoughts, or one's intuition, or one's deeds, which are perceptible through the 5 senses, that has not been discussed yet.
Right. Thank you for that, Gregory. Now, in our modern world, we have the Google or AI, let me say, artificial intelligence, and I did put the topic inside the Google AI, and this is what it gave me, which I must admit I was a bit surprised, but I will read it out. It says, so what is happening to you is not your fault. When difficult things happen, our minds often try to make sense of the pain by blaming ourselves. But you do not carry the responsibility of things outside of your control. Gregory, I guess partially that makes sense. You want to say something about that?
The world outside your control tells you so much about it. There must be some relationship between what has happened and yourself. If there is no relationship, then you can't be answerable for something which has nothing to do with you.
Yes. Okay, so that's of course logically makes sense. And of course the context is that things go wrong, and then, or bad things happen, and then the blame goes, some people definitely think they are to blame for it. They won't, even if they are not, let's say, completely directly the instigator of what happened to them, but they somehow feel it. And we're going to talk about this more further in the show, so I just don't want to go in too deep right now. Let me just see what else it says. There's something we can use there. Yeah, let's keep it for a little bit later. So Gregory, I know in a way you partially answered this already, but let me just ask this anyway. So is everything that happens to us our fault?
Well, thanks for this particular question. And one will be very careful in responding to this question, in the sense that one will like to present another part of it. Consider in this particular scenario, in this particular context, someone is taking a stroll in the street, and along the line, a piece of paper, and he just picked it carelessly, only to open the paper and find it's a lottery. It's a lottery card, and it's supposed to be useless, but for one reason or the other, he kept it, and he kept going, only to find out when he got to where he was going that the number on that particular card has won a jackpot. Now the question is this his fault?
Okay. Well, he bought the ticket. I'm
He
assuming
didn't buy the ticket. He didn't buy the ticket. He only picked it up.
Oh, sorry, I didn't get it. Oh, right.
Yeah, he only picked it up in the street.
It was somebody else's wallet.
Well.
Oh, sorry. The ticket fell out of the wallet. I didn't get the story. Yeah.
As he was going along the streets, his wallet fell down from his hand.
I see. Yes.
For one reason or the other, we don't know.
Right. Yes.
And then, in picking up this wallet, he saw another piece of paper, which he picked up carelessly.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't know what is there, but along the line, he just felt like looking at it. And by the time he got to where he was going, maybe it's a Saturday evening, they announced, oh, the winning ticket is so and so and so.
Yes.
And then, wow, he felt, oh, he's going to become a millionaire. The question now is it his fault?
Okay. There's one question I want to 100% confirm it into my mind. Maybe I wasn't concentrating when you were talking. if I can please ask this question to confirm. So, just to be clear, is that ticket his ticket? Because I'm not
No,
sure right now. It's not
no,
his ticket.
it's not his ticket. He didn't buy
No.
any ticket. He only picked it up from
He
the
just
floor.
picked it from the street as his wallet fell down. He
Yes,
found this
yes,
also this other paper which was also there. So
correct.
that's now I got it. Okay, so it was nothing to do with him as such.
Not at all.
Okay, right, right. Now we got it. And this, let's say, it's obviously how can I say, unbelievable story. So let's just assume, for the talk of discussion, we will assume it's true, you know, or is a possible scenario. Okay. So the question is it his fault
Yes,
that he got this ticket,
that he
lottery
got this
ticket,
ticket, this lottery
the
ticket that
winning
gave him,
ticket?
that gave him, say, 10 million pounds.
Yes.
Is that his fault?
Well, the fault doesn't quite sound right in this situation.
Thank you very much.
Luck. I will use the word luck.
That is where I'm going. That when we hear of fault, we immediately associate bad things. If, however, something comes across to us without understanding the background, we are grateful, we are happy, we are joyful. But it never occurred to us to examine, why me? That never happened. And therein lies the problem. Because the human spirit has not made enough effort to understand the mechanisms in nature, in creation. It knows only faults when there are things which happen, which he himself cannot explain. So, hence the question, what happens to me? Is it my fault? That's why you have the counter scenario. That which is helpful, which is beneficial, has happened to you. Is it your fault? Now one can already see that the whole framing, our concepts have been badly distorted. Distorted because behind the reasoning of many a human personality, there is that fear due to the distortion, due to one-sidedness. If, however, we remove that, what happened to me, is it my fault? To what happened to me is to be helpful to me, such that one will be more one will be more open to the challenges in nature, to be able to observe very many things. Then you will find that that word fault will be moved aside, and that which is more joyful, which will enable the individual to explore deeper rather than superficially, that will arise.
Thank you for that explanation, and you know, the example or scenario you gave earlier about winning a lottery ticket, which is, let's say, you know, just demonstrating basically that yes, we normally go to this let's say default scenario where you blame yourself or say the fault is with me, or sometimes you even put the fault on someone else, of course, but then there can be a scenario where that is not even a fault, and yet you'll say that, you'll claim it that is a fault. So it shows that we need to be trying to understand this situation better. And you also said there that I've forgotten what I was going to say now, but something like that. The things we can't explain that happen to us, and then we jump. Yes, but it's actually the situation is that we can't explain. So maybe what we should be saying is what happened, why it happened, and try to explain it. In fact,
Correct.
Greg, let me go to that point. Is it possible to find out in every scenario, every situation that happened to you, why it happened to you? Can you always find an answer why something happened to you?
Of course, the possibility is there for those who are not too superficial, but simple logic will already prove that for one to be able to experience one thing or the other, make the person become much alert or some other thing, such that the person that has experienced that particular happening, to enable the individual to open up, not only into precipitates, what many say has happened to me or whatever. These are the final effects of the activities in nature, in creation, these activities that have taken on form. In the forms, there could be forms of joys and happiness. There could be that of sorrow. When it is that of joy and happiness, people don't even bother. They take everything and they run away and they are quite happy. That's suffice. When it is sorrow, if they are humble enough, for some who are, they would search within themselves to find the connections. If they are intellectual people, they will not consider it further because they could not, through their immediate environment, find any connection or any relationship, and they'll say it has nothing to do with me. If there are people who reflect deeper, albeit also intuitively, they may search much deeper to find out if along the line, here, or even before they incarnated, there could have been connections. And these could have been reciprocal activities. So that is also possible. But many are not prepared to accept that. They are only prepared to find some other persons, connected with it. But if, however, is that of joy instead of sorrow, they take all the credit. They won't even say it is fault. Like you rightly said, this is my luck.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for this answer and showing us that, yes, when things go our way, and of course we are happy about it, and we don't ask question why. When it is a bad situation, difficult situation, then question is always there, why, how, all such things come up. And yet, if you look at it in a, let's say, neutral and objective way, you should be asking question no matter good or bad situation. And that way, you treat it in a proper way to understand the situation. So yes, it shows how we human beings behave. When things go well and when things don't go well. So thank you. Dear listeners, I want to let you know you're listening to Bless Radio. This is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. from 6 p.m. UK time to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdrushin. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grail, that's grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we are discussing for tonight is, what happens to me? Is it my fault? What happens to me? Is it my fault? If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number. I'll give it with the prefix, which is +44 79 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And you can also contact us through the website where we are broadcasting, that is Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page to the bottom, you'll come across a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. Yes. Now, I want to tell you also we are broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there, space Grail Message, space the topic, which is what happens to me? Is it my fault? So I'll just repeat that. So that's the to listen to us live on YouTube. You can go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio, Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there, space Grail Message, space what happens to me? Is it my fault? And then after the show ends, which is 8 p.m. UK time, you can listen to the recording of this show again on YouTube, and you type exactly the same words in the search box, which I'll repeat again, Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, space Grail Message, space what happens to me? Is it my fault? And of course, you can listen to the recording of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.fm/radio/Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 there. Now, Gregory, we've been talking about, obviously, our fault in these matters. And even when I was looking up in the dictionary the meaning of the word fault, there was another meaning given, which is error. Or even you can use the word accident. So these things happen in life. We do make errors, we do have accidents. And then again, the question arises, is that my fault that I made an error or had an accident? Accident normally would involve, can involve just you, but it could involve even another person or people. So, I know, Gregory, you sort of gave another angle of not just looking at the way fault, but let's see this accident of error. Is that, can you consider that my fault or our fault?
You use the expression accident. The question is, what is an accident? Basically, what many refer to accidents are the final manifestation which were not expected. So we have a manifestation of something and you were not expecting it. If you were expecting it, you will scarcely call it an accident. Because you're not expecting it and something has manifested, now you say, oh, this is an accident. The problem here is that what lies behind this accident? Like the example we gave, when along the line you picked up a card on the street, you weren't expecting it. Was that an accident? Now, when you find that that particular card lottery is going to give you almost 10 million pounds, was that an accident? These are the questions. Because intellectually, we cannot find the relationship between the happening, the manifestation, and what lies behind it. That is why we use certain expressions to cover our ignorance. For in nature, in creation, things are fluid. Happenings are dynamic. There is the happenings which is perceptible using the five senses. These happenings are the final manifestation on which you have things that had previous starting points, could be beyond that which one will refer to as the earthly, could be in the ethereal, could be even in the spiritual, could be in the animistic. These are different gradations, different categories where the human spirit can experience. So what we refer to as accidents are basically happenings or manifestations of that which we were not expecting, maybe because we are not mobile enough in our thoughts or mobile enough in our intuitions. If it turns out that that which we have now experienced is so beneficial and it gives us joy, we call it luck. If, on the other hand, it doesn't give us joy, we call it an accident and we try to find some other person responsible for it. All this is because the human spirit hasn't made enough efforts to understand the environment around itself. For if it had, it would have been sensitive enough to be able to pick out something. And in that sensitivity, if that which has been sensed, the premonition is that of a doom, it might, along the line, have prepared itself such that it becomes a symbolical redemption. Many of these things are placed for the human personality to experience, but most of the time it ignores all these warnings. And when it now comes to the manifestation due to ignorance, you now have something close to a doomsday occurring. They refer to it as accident. If along the line, this is a very sensible personality that is able to sense that something is not right and musters its strength to be able to either say a little prayer or to ask for further guidance along the line, as long as that little prayer is genuine, it is purely genuine, find such is that that personality is guided along a different direction, because in that act of pure, genuine prayer, it has changed its inner environment. So that which would have hit him so terribly is able to escape it and does something in the form of symbol. It could be an advice given to some other person. It could be he just fell along the line and got up without understanding why he fell. So that which would have destroyed him only scratched him very simply, or must have glided off due to his inner purity. These are the things which many do not consider. All they care about is earthly manifestations which make them slip, for they do not ask questions on how and why these things came about.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this answer. I've got again another question. So we face challenges in life, and some people consider that, they say, a test to make us strong. So is that a right way to look at the situation? We face challenges and this is a test to make us strong?
You use the word challenges. Fair enough. If you have a scenario where you need to cultivate something, that which needed to be cultivated must be put on the soil, say in the case of maize or wheat. And when it is sown in the soil, it struggles to germinate. The weather is there, the heat is there, and in germinating, it overcomes the challenges around it. Therefore, the human spirit, which is a spirit seed grain, in that human spirit seed grain, or human spirit spark, it is sown in the world of matter. That which has been sown into it, these are the talents that it needs to cultivate. The process of this cultivation, many may call it challenge, but it has to grow. So you may have, maybe along the line, joyful experiences. Along the line, experiences which are not that joyful. But it has to grow, it has to cultivate those things which had been granted to it, such that it will grow, mature, and produce like a grain more grains. So you find that one should not call these experiences negative experiences. These are supporting experiences that allow the human personality to become more aware of the challenges. It is not punishment. But along the line, you may have the scenario where the human spirit already has had warnings that the roads you are traversing, there are challenges which may cause you so much sorrow. If it refuses to listen to the guidance which has been sent to it, then subsequently it is his refusal that made it to go through a path which has brought so much sorrow. So you will find that which, like the topic says, has happened to it, it has ignored that which should be beneficial, and therefore the reciprocal activity has now returned back and struck it.
Thanks a lot for that, Gregory. What I'm seeing is when we are going through any situation, we should look at it in a neutral manner rather than, oh, this is good or this is bad. Because
Correct.
when you look at a neutral manner, you can be objective, of course, number one, and you don't need to get, let's call it a challenge that we have going to face. You don't now, can I say, it might be a difficult, of course, challenge, but then you don't have to become, oh, I'm struggling, and like you yourself put yourself down negative, I can't do it, something like this. And then you are putting your own barrier because yes, let's say it is a challenge, but doesn't mean something that is a bad thing as such. You need
Correct.
to get strong. You need to get
Correct.
strong, and that means you have to overcome something. So overcoming whatever it is not that you can't, just because you yourself thinking that this is a bad thing, then you start having this, let's say, negative idea in your head. Negative, again, all these words, negative, positive, this is the human words, well, interpretation of these words. Let's say we human beings can turn it opposite to what really they're meant to be. So this is we have to be careful when we speak these words, what exactly is really meant by them, yeah, good or bad. You can, as I say, you feel bad, you say that, or I feel tired. Okay, yes, but that's one, and then at the same time another time you are feeling good. So good, it's all part of life, rather than, oh, it's the end of the world and I'm going to suffer so much. And no, there's a purpose in everything, and sometimes you have to work quite hard to get to the goal. You see, it doesn't mean that if you think of for example, in sports, especially these in quotes elite sport athletes, whatever they are, they obviously have to practice more than the rest of us, and then they succeed in the end.
Correct.
So we don't complain about that, or they don't complain about it. So okay, let us look at something else now. Now, Gregory, what about fate and God's will? Something happened to us, because we are saying, is it my fault? But what about fate and God's will? Is it maybe God is putting something in our way?
Well, first, one has to understand the will of the Almighty. The manifestations of this will of the Almighty, the mechanism, the operation of this will, these are what I refer to as the laws of nature. because they operate in nature. On the other hand, it is the same laws when it's referred to as the laws of creation. For nature is in creation, so these are the same equivalent laws which helps, which moderates. These laws are the expressions of this will of the Almighty. So in every operation in nature, in creation, it is this will or these laws of nature that make it come about. Therefore, if you find the scenario, when you consider a scenario where a human personality has tied a knot along the line in his or her activities, fair enough, it is the person who tied that knot who needs to untie it subsequently. That person is only given the opportunities to untie that knot it has made. So you will find the untying of knots along the line. Many a time it may turn out to be painful due to ignorance. At other times it may be done with joy if the individual has an insight. That which they refer to as fate are basically the returns of what they themselves had put in creation in the past, which have now returned to them so that they can taste of it to find out if it is of benefit to them or is not of benefit to them. So you find whatever it is good for the individual to face these things very boldly. For in the scenario where they face it boldly, in that scenario, they call forth all the powers at their disposal, the spiritual power at their disposal, the power of their thoughts, and the physical power which they also have in the operations in nature. You will find that in calling forth all these powers, that helps to change the surrounding of the individual. That helps to change the covering, the ethereal covering of the individual. In that case, because you have the human personality as forcefully, confidently looking up with a good volition, he or she protects itself. So in that case, you find for many who are bold enough, they win through. And due to lack of fear, because they are confident on the good volition which they harbor within themselves, which volition is in accordance with the will of the Almighty, many a thing which would have destroyed them only give them a little jerk.
Thanks a lot for that answer again, Gregory, and explanation. Now, you've mentioned a few times now these laws of nature or laws of creation. And I think it's appropriate that we say what these laws are. So please, can you tell us what these laws are that operate in our fate and in our activities?
Actually, these laws may be considered basically the laws of balance. That when one considers the whole of nature, the whole of creation to be in perpetual motion, and in that perpetual motion, balance is also maintained. So, the scenario where the human personality initiates a change in this motion because they are able to absorb of the power which streams in creation, because you have these are all in motion, then one has to consider the effects that these human personalities have brought in as a consequence of their abilities. Because they have initiated a change, you have a balance, a reciprocal balance is therefore brought about to maintain this balance. That reciprocal activity may be also called a law. So we now have the laws of reciprocal activities in creation due to the abilities of the human personality. However, these laws of reciprocal activity does not act in an arbitrary manner. You will find that in this manifestation of these laws, those things which are homogeneous with themselves, they are able to connect. Therefore, you have the laws of the attraction of homogeneity. For if they were not able, if there were no connection, if there was no homogeneity, they wouldn't come together. So you find that one of this other law, which is also a result of the motion in nature, in creation, because everything is in motion, is that of the attraction of homogeneous species. One may also go further that yes, there is motion, there is the attraction of homogeneous species, there is the law of reciprocal activity. If one considers this and finds that even within our thoughts, there are times one has heavy thoughts which weighs the individual down. There are times one has lighter thoughts in which the individual feel much lighter. The so-called heavy thoughts are denser because they weigh you down. Therein lies the laws of gravitation. For gravitation only comes about because in the resulting motion, you will find that some that are homogeneous in their nature are heavier than others. Again, you will find manifestation even in nature, wherever you have that which is solid and that which is not that solid. Therefore, it is densification that produces gravitation. For where densification does not exist anymore, gravity is not there. These are only part explanations. Many an individual that is bold enough should examine the work in the light of truth, the Grail Message of Abrushin, where all these discussed here are fully well explained.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this explanation or description of the laws of nature, or laws of creation as we call them. They really help to understand how this life that we, on Earth and beyond works. It's like the essential part of the mechanism of this world that we live in. Now, I want to let the listeners know that you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abrushin. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is, what happens to me? Is it my fault? What happens to me? Is it my fault? If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is, I'll say it with our prefix, which is +44 79 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting, that is Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll come down to a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in your questions or comments. And we are also broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, space Grail Message, space the topic of our show tonight, which is, what happens to me? Is it my fault? And when the show finishes at 8 p.m. UK time, you can listen to a recording of this show also on YouTube. You again go to the search box and type again the same words, which are Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, space Grail Message, space the topic for tonight, which is, what happens to me? Is it my fault? And of course, you can listen to the recording of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno. That's ZENO.FM/radio/bless radio 1. That's the number 1 there. Now, there's been very tragic news in the UK in the last few days, where, let's say, some young men were driving in a car, well, they use this word joyriding in the old tradition, you can say, but in a, let's say, dangerous manner, and they were being chased by a police car, and then these joyriders, if I can use that word, went down a major dual carriageway in the wrong way, in the wrong direction of, and then very unfortunately they crashed into another police car, which was actually helping to look for them as well, and 2 policemen in that car, the police car, they died, and so did the 5 young men who were in the other car, who were being chased let's say up to 10 seconds before that. So this is a big tragedy, and this happened in the town in northern England called Middlesbrough. So it has been in the news, and in fact, the more up-to-date news is that police arrested 12 people yesterday connected with that car chase, they say it's connected with organized crime. And today they have arrested another 5 people. And I think some of these people have now been charged with, which I can't remember what is the crime they are being charged. Any case, it's a big tragedy. You could say, yes. And so, of course, people will be thinking, oh, those 2 policemen, well, nobody said this word innocent, but they said they were not doing anything to have deserved to be killed in this way, unexpected way completely. And of course, those 5 young men, even if they're criminal, maybe, and yes, they were driving dangerously, and especially going the wrong way on a major road. But do they deserve to die? So the question is, on this matter, I just say what the topic says. This happened to me. What happened to me? Is it my fault? So Gregory, and I know the investigation is still continuing with regards to the, this incident. But you can imagine the families of this, let's call them incident, the victims, are quite, obviously in shock and suffering, in their pain of loss of the people involved. So my question there is, Gregory, maybe, I don't know, we do it separately or maybe we do it together. The 2 policemen who were killed, their families will be thinking, oh, yes, they were doing their duty, we know that, but it happened to them, that they got killed in this car crash. It's a very, I think it was a head-on collision. I mean, you can believe it would be head-on collision. And of course, the other 5 young men also got killed. So the question is, Gregory, is it their fault that they were killed in this disaster?
That is a pertinent question. One will go and mention the case of those who are on duty. In the duties man has taken upon itself, there are possible challenges, possible dangers. Like you have with those in uniform. In the military are also in uniform, in which their lives are at risk, but they must perform their duties to ensure that a nation is safe. So you have, in the same vein, the policemen who had to, in their line of duty, put their lives at risk, have now met this end. They should be commended for that which they have done, in the sense of pursuing others to ensure such things are not meted out to others. Yes, it's a very sad story, but the fact remains, like those who are in the military or those who are in uniform, they always put their lives at risk. I'm sure if it were the case of the military, people will not talk much about it, because it is expected. This particular case, it is not expected as such, hence the much talk and regret about it. The policemen, we wish them well. It depends on their inner thoughts at the particular time of departure. But along the line, if the human spirit wishes to be honest with itself, there would have been signs. Which signs they themselves might have ignored or didn't pay much attention. In this particular case, the best one can do, on repeat, is to wish them well. One cannot now turn around and say, is it their fault and all that? These turn out to be intellectual problems. For what they themselves have had to redeem, all these lies within the happenings in creation. We do not know the facts. For what lies behind this, the motive that lies behind all this is in creation, and it's only when one has access to the motive that one is permitted to judge, if at all one has the right criteria to judge. But for those who precipitated it, they themselves have woven a knot, have woven a thread, which thread they will have to redeem.
It was on the radio, not our radio station, but I would say to other talk radio station, and they were discussing, why these things are happening. Let's say that is in the, well, I don't know if it's in the modern world, because these things exist a long time. What I'm pointing to is, this behavior of the young men. They seem to do these chases many times in the past. It wasn't this incident, it happened as a one-off incident. They were already criminal, and even they had convictions, some of these young men, for coming across the police in many past occasions, in the chases, for example. And then even one, let's say one of the media said, they found one of the young men who died. He had been posting on TikTok, the video of not this chase, but in the past chase with the police. And then, as I said, there was commentary on the radio talks or show that, when we have these films with car chases, maybe some people, it's not really into dangerous driving. It's nothing new, but dangerous driving, but the consequences of that are not severe enough to prevent the people repeating it again and again. It seems even the police, they don't have respect even for the police anymore. So all these issues or points were being made. So
as these things, there is what comes to mind, the lack of understanding of what responsibility is. Many a time in this forum, the discussion is if many a human personality, be they young or old, if they come to realize that as a result of their activities, they endanger the activities of others, if they can imagine what the impact is, then they will become very careful. Because if others engage in such activity, a particular goal, without due considerations to others. Again, when it is said to love your neighbor as yourself, it means respect. In your activities, show respect to your neighbors such that they won't come to any harm. But what this has proven is the lack of understanding of, or the lack of consideration for others. There are some who do not even wish to go there, or because they haven't got to that stage to grasp the effects of their activities. That is always the problem. Whether these come into world wars or accidents or crashes or some, it's immaterial. The core remains the same. The lack of respect for others. Yet, those people who do not show respect for others, they still wish to be respected. And that is the biggest challenge that the human spirit has. You do not show any respect in your activities, and yet you demand respect from others, which respect you did not give to anyone. So it's not as complicated as many think. Society, it has to be hammered within the psyche in society what respect means, such that people can live in harmony.
thanks very much, Gregory, for this answer. Now, there's some other issues I'd like to go into as well. They're all kind of related to this UK problems, you can call them, that we are facing. Now, this one, it is about the food we give to our children. That's in the UK. You know, the parents claim that they care for their children, and but then when the children go out into the school or even outside, they're eating like burgers and crisps and sausages, which are not very healthy, and like we call it junk food. That's one way we call it. Now, the funny thing is, our European neighbors, they seem to have a much higher standard of food, and even they look in disgust when they hear the story of UK's standard of foods that are given. Especially we're talking about children here, and also, yeah. Let me just go there. So, again, this was on this radio show that I was listening today, talk show. This question was put: do we really care about the children, we claim we do, but in this matter about the food, it seems we don't care. So, and the question is why? Again, why? Why is this happening to me? Or in this case, the children? Is it, again, my fault? So we don't need to say that part. But why? The question was why? Why is this happening? Especially when you, as I say, you look at your fellow European neighbors, that's the people of UK, that is, neighbors, then they say, oh, they don't have this happening there. So, Gregory, what could be the explanation for that? Is there some, yeah.
But don't forget, this is the UK that decided not to follow the same rules as they apply in Europe. So, and it's the people of the UK that decided not to have anything to do with the policies which are put in place in Europe. So the question is, whose fault is it? Is it the people in Europe or the people in the UK?
I think it's clearly is UK, because nobody forced anything on the UK. It was, in fact, even while they were in the EU, as you said before, but there are certain things, each country can still have its own rules. Not everything is completely under the EU rules, because each country still has a right to make its own rules, which doesn't have to align with the rest of EU countries, because and that's whether within the EU all the countries have certain they have things in common, and they also have some of their own rules or laws, let's call it. And so this is quite it's only when it becomes a European EU law, you can call it, then it applies to the whole EU people. But otherwise each country can still make its own rules. So, you know, for example, if let's say a thief is sentenced, and in UK let's say the minimum sentence, let's say, is 5 years, just to make an example. This is not necessarily true, just to give it. But in maybe France, it might be 7 years. So they don't have a standard that if you're a thief, a court doing something, that everybody in the EU must have the same sentence. It's not always 100% this type of system. So people, so this is particular to the UK, which I actually have my own answer, which somebody told me years and years ago. Just I overheard them saying something, and that was that when we had the World War, there was rations being, you know, people had ration. I mean, it means, and certain things you couldn't have. For example, chocolate. I'm not saying chocolate is good, but certain things were rationed, and basically the rations were of a poor quality compared to if there was no ration. Things were just restricted. Anyway, now when the war was over, World War that is, the manufacturers, so it is said, they decided, oh, the people are used to having this, let's say, low quality standard in the ration, so we carry on. We just keep producing. That's in the UK I'm talking about. It didn't apply to Italy and France. Even I hear they do gourmet meal there. Even in like when you're driving your car on a let's say motorway, and you go to a service station, let's say in France, they will have gourmet food available in this service station. You won't get that in UK. So somehow it is said, or this person explained, that because in this World War they had rations and there was a poor quality food there, the companies continued producing that, and the UK people just accepted it. They didn't, nobody blinked to say what's going on here. It was just accepted. So that is, let's say, one potential answer. I don't say this is absolutely the fact, but you can explain it. You can explain this.
Strictly speaking, that may be, but one should not forget the countries like the UK, they had the National Health Service that helped to ensure that people have access to health. And part of that health is what the people eat. And because it has an impact on healthcare. The key thing are the rules which have been put in place for production, for food production and food consumption, you will find it requires a lot of effort, not only in the UK, but also in other countries. That being the case, many of these countries do not wish to put so much effort in regulations. Whatever is available is made available to those who need it. So with different countries, they only act based on how much resources they have. That does not mean that the resources they have, they could not sort of increase the resources to ensure food is made available to all. But you will find that in these countries, like in any other country, there are people who have access to the money or the finance. But the government regulates all this. One can only stress that country that wishes to proceed to that which is ideal must consider one for all and all for one. In that case, step by step, they will approach that which is ideal, in which that which many a person consumes as food is beneficial to the person.
Thanks a lot for that, Gregory. I want to, before I continue with the topic, I just want to let the listeners know that you're listening to Bless Radio. And this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Uprushan. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is, what happens to me? Is it my fault? What happens to me? Is it my fault? If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number with this prefix, which is +44 79 39 641 958. I'll just repeat that. This is +44 79 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll come across a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And we are also broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and then type in the search box Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1. Space Grail Message. Space the topic of our show tonight, which is, what happens to me? Is it my fault? And then after the show ends tonight at 8 p.m. UK time, you can listen to the recording of this show also on YouTube. go again and type the same words in the search box, which are Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there, space, Grail Message, space, what happens to me? Is it my fault? That's to listen to the recording of our show. Now, and then thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno. That's ZENO FM/radio/bless radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Now, there was another point which I won't ask as a question, but which is also involving with children, and this time is to do with the drinks, which are fizzy drinks that we are also, unfortunately, the children get addicted to that, and their brains are small, so the way it affects an adult, these fizzy drinks, or energy drinks even, it's not good for them. So there's so many issues actually that we could keep going. This other one, which is very much in the news right now, is about the smart mobiles, or even social media, giving access to the children. So in UK, a law has come into place, if I'm correct, I think it's all in place now, where the children under 16 are not allowed to be I have to say, I have to double check if the law has come into place yet, or is about to come into place. In any case, it is to stop the children who are under 16 using social media and even smartphones, because let's say there's a lot of harmful things that are on these platforms, which let's say the platform owners are not how can I say, acting in a strict way to help protect the children. So this is what the government came up with. Now, actually the other detrimental thing, not only is the harmful content, and it's affecting the children at their school in their performance. Again, many of them are not having enough concentration, because they're watching these things, or games, they're playing games or something. So they're lacking that, they're lacking energy, they're just not functioning as they're supposed to. And the question again, another question arises here. Are the parents to blame, since it is meant to be the parents who are supposed to look after the children, or is it the government, or even the school? So Gregory, again, this we're talking about who is at fault. So what can you say about this one?
One kept stressing one is not searching out for faults, because searching out for faults as such is unhelpful. But putting policies in place, being proactive, that is the way forward. For children should be children. It is no use permitting children access to environments where they can reap a lot of harm. Therefore, if they have access to devices, those devices must be connected to places where you have, or where access has been granted to children, and programs which are made for children. With that, many of these problems are solved. But you find some parents don't like that policy. There are some nations, they don't like that policy. and everyone is out there to rip off others. So when you said who is to blame, all other than the children are to blame, because the children haven't matured to that level in which they are permitted to make that decision for themselves. Otherwise, they will not be children. They would have been adults. They would have been adults because if they went to court, they will be considered as children. So what applies to them does not apply to the adults. With that in mind, government, schools, parents, there's a need to come together to enforce this one for all and all for one.
Thanks again, Gregory, for this answer and responsibility that we need to have. For the welfare of everyone. It seems that, as I said, there are so many problems where it seems people we've lost control, and standards may have declined, but it seems too prevalent that this should not really be like this. It's almost like anytime a new technology comes, it is not tested, thoroughly, and it is a free for all. I mean, I can keep on listing endless issues that are, let's say, when I listen on the radio, these are being debated, and every time you see, the law seems to be lacking in enforcing, because they haven't made the law to prevent any or regulate this environment of we are working. Somebody can come up with something new, and until the harm has already spread so far, then somebody makes a big noise, and only then, even especially there are deaths. That seems to be the biggest, even the tragedy of this car crash with the policeman being killed. That is the one making the big headline, and then suddenly the people wake up and start acting. Until the death happens, it's all accepted. When I say accepted, tolerated, and then no real action takes place. But once a death happens, suddenly that is more serious than all the damage already done. So that's very unfortunate that we seem to learn. Maybe learn is not even the right word. Act when things have gone too far. Okay, now I've got two questions. I'm just saying which one I should ask. Let me look at this one, Gregory. Now this one, in UK or Europe, there has been a very hot weather, severe weather, even drought. In half of UK was put under drought. So now one of the issues that came up was that some places there's not enough water for everybody, and they had to put a hosepipe ban. But that's not the only thing. So what happens in UK, we have the water companies are private. They've been privatized, and there's no real competition because the company just operates in one area, and there's not an alternative water company that you can change to. So basically nobody has any choice in whichever water company they have. But what's been happening is that there hasn't been, let's say, proper investment to maintain these water services, especially in regard to building new reservoirs. So when, in fact, there's a shortage of water, like a drought, there's since I believe it's almost 10-15 years since the last new reservoir was built in any of the UK, and so when there's the drought, they just can only put the ban on, and in some areas, they just ran out of the water completely. It was that bad. Now, there's supposed to be a regulator for the water. It's called Ofwat. Even it seems it doesn't have enough power to penalize or enforce, these water companies, to act in the service of the public. And we're talking about, okay, if you don't want to say, we're not looking for someone to blame or find the fault, but we know things are not being done right, let's say, and so the question arises, it's like before, where is the accountability? What is so these, as I said, these companies were privatized, but somehow there was a regulator put in place by the government, and yet when it comes to this, let's say, I wouldn't call it unforeseen scenarios, just difficult scenarios that happen, the system seems to fail. So Gregory, is there some incompetence, maybe that's the word I'm going to use now, going on, and where the accountability is lacking, and there's all these failures happening?
Although the questions such as yours do not really belong to an introduction to spiritual things, but for a change, one will refer many things to the type of government. Which government is a representation of the people? Because either there is no water or there is too much. So you find this swing to very little to too much, and the lack of preparation. So it is not the so-called provider of water that should be blamed, but those who put the policies in there. If the policies are such that they are being proactive in taking into consideration when you will have excess water or lack of excess water, like you have in a place like the Netherlands, then you find it is manageable, and many of the errors are minimized. There will always be challenges. If one looks back to the effect that Hurricane Katrina had in the US, in which somebody from the Netherlands was asked to advise the government there, that person put forward a solution which was so pragmatic. Therefore, you will have that in this particular case, the case of the UK, they might decide to go along such that it becomes helpful, where they will have to manage either excess water, or in the case where you don't have excess water or you have a drought, things are put in place so as to minimize the disruption.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Gregory. I know these are earthly matters and we are a spiritual discussion program, but human beings are doing these things, which is meant to be a spiritual, human beings are meant to be spiritual. And, when you say all for one and one for all, it means caring for human beings. And human beings are suffering due to decisions of human beings, whether in government or not. There's a consequence of all these things, of actions and decisions. And but it seems, as I said, there's a endless list of these. How can I say? As you said, there will be problems or challenges that we face, but there seem to be a mountain of them rather than. I know it's not a disaster, complete disaster, but there is. I was feeling a bit incompetence and lack of maybe foresight in thinking ahead, because these are not these issues that are happening are not something completely surprising that people cannot have an idea that this might happen. Climate change, they say, they've been known about for years, and but it looks like it has been put in the not a big priority. So when these things have happened now, it looks like, oh, we are surprised, and so that's where you could say I'm using the word incompetence going on. Now, I've got another question which is quite different. It's to do with, again, where people, let's say, terrible thing happened to people, and the question happens, am I to blame? Now, this particular case, or let's say, a thing that I would like to look at is when women, especially, they are raped, and they really feel, how can I say, distressed and guilt within themselves, even wondering, they're looking to say, oh, this happened to me. Of course, it wasn't, nothing can say this was meant to be planned, but then the question arises, am I to blame? I know we are saying we shouldn't look at our blame or fault, but it seems to arise inevitably, if I can say that way, especially with these women victims. They're victims, and yet, and of course, they say, oh, maybe I'm guilty. There's some guilt feeling within those women, and then what it's normally said by friends and relatives to those women, that no, you're not guilty, it's the perpetrator. They did it. But somehow that doesn't take away the feeling of guilt within these women. So Gregory, again, how can I say, explain that, or overcome that, because it happens a lot.
You yourself mentioned the feeling of guilt. Now, that feeling or sensing of guilt comes about when the individual who is the victim, once they have that feeling of guilt, it means, therefore, the possibility is there where they might have decided differently, that they didn't decide separately, is now what returns to them and becomes a pressure like guilt. Otherwise, there will be no feeling of guilt, because your question is stressing on the feeling of guilt. If I have a feeling of guilt, it means I must have, either in my thoughts or in my intuitions, I would have sensed another path where possible, but I didn't follow that path. Therefore, I find I feel guilty. Maybe if I had done this, maybe if I have done that. And for many a woman, these strong intuitive perceptions are correct. For with women, they are granted that opportunity to sense very deeply that they do not make use of that sensing is what returns to them as that feeling of guilt, which lies at the back their sensing. It's like the motive which is waiting. Maybe you should have gone along this direction. If you have to take a stroll in a path which you yourself know very well, before you leave and proceed on that path, there are many impressions that will assail you. If, however, you have refined these impressions again and again, many a time you will refuse to proceed along that path. Just like you have in the case of animals who, when forced to take a certain path, they will refuse. They will not go along that path, even with their owners right before them. Women are more sensitive than men because that is their nature. That sensing is intrinsic. As long as many of them stick to purity, as long as they strive to give purity in their thoughts, then many of them are able to pick out a path which, if they follow the right path, many a harm can be avoided. No doubt about that. But if such is pushed aside, that is when the feeling of guilt comes about.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this answer. And it's definitely a point of reflection, like this feeling of guilt. Why am I having it? There is a reason. And sure enough, yes, maybe something there was some forewarning or something you could have done. And which makes you think, oh, so there was a chance to avoid this. So yeah, thank you for that. Now we've come to the end of the show, listeners, on this topic of discussion on what happens to me. Is it my fault? I hope you've enjoyed our discussion. And now I'd like to end the show with again my traditional reading from the Grail Message, which is the foreword of the Grail Message, titled For Your Guidance. The bandage falls, and belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I'm addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As for the malevolent and prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those who still carry within them a spark of truth and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such, it will become the shining light and staff. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present-day confusion. The following word does not bring a new religion, but is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners or readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed-for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aids for this, in the form of ready-made opinions of others, only walks his path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. But the moment he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call to help in his ascent, he is employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all obstacles that seek to divert him. Therefore awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you're truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God. Uprushing. Dear listeners, if you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. Now, Gregory, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing listeners a very beautiful week ahead.
Thank you. Same from me, listeners. Have a beautiful week ahead. We'll be back as usual Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. UK time till 8 p.m. with another topic. Take care.